In a quiet village where children played under the sun, a shadow was growing. No one knew his name yet, but the boy from the hills would one day become the most feared man in Mexico. This is the story of El Mencho, a life that turned fear into an empire and a country into a battlefield. In the rugged hills of Michoacán, life was simple but hard. Families labored under the sun, harvesting crops, raising children with dreams bigger than their reality. One of these children was Nemesio Rubén Oseguera Cervantes, later known as El Mencho. Born in 1966 in the small town of Aguililla, he knew poverty from a young age. Yet even as a boy, there was a hunger in him, a longing for more than the dust in the fields. His early life was quiet, almost ordinary. But in the shadows of these mountains, he learned the lessons of survival, lessons that would one day make him unstoppable. As a young man, Nemesio crossed borders in search of opportunity, traveling to the United States. There he glimpsed a different world, wealth, crime, and the dangerous paths that some men take to escape poverty. By his early 20s, eventually he was arrested on drug charges and deported back to Mexico. But prison and borders didn't break him, they hardened him. Each setback, each brush with authority was a lesson. Each failure was a step towards something far bigger than anyone could imagine. Back in Mexico, he briefly worked as a police officer in Jalisco, learning the inner workings of law enforcement. This time in uniform gave him knowledge few criminals had, how the system worked, where it was weak, and how one could bend it to their advantage. By the early 1990s, he left the badge behind. He was no longer the boy from Aguililla. He was a man ready to rise in the criminal underworld, a world where violence, loyalty, and fear were the currency of power. The early 1990s were chaotic in Mexico. Cartels were splintering, alliances crumbling, and violence was becoming the new language of power. Amid this turbulence, El Mencho stepped out of the shadows. No one handed him a crown. He carved his way forward, learning fast that survival required more than courage. It required cunning, ruthlessness, and a vision others could not see. He began as a foot soldier, running errands, delivering messages, moving shipments. But unlike others, he observed everything: the strengths, the weaknesses, the patterns of rivals, and the mistakes of those who thought violence was enough. By the late 1990s, he had aligned himself with one of Mexico's emerging cartels, and when internal conflicts erupted, El Mencho saw an opportunity to rise not as a follower, but as a leader. In 2009, that vision took shape. Alongside a few trusted allies, he formed what would become the Cartel de Jalisco Nueva Generación. It began as a small operation, but under El Mencho, it transformed into a new type of cartel, one that combined old-school brutality with modern strategy. Unlike other cartels, CJNG didn't just traffic drugs. They infiltrated towns, co-opted authorities, and used fear as a tool of governance. Each act of violence, each calculated attack was a statement. This was not business as usual. This was a cartel that would define a generation. El Mencho, the boy from Aguililla, had become a symbol of terror. His reputation spread faster than his shipments. Police officers, politicians, rival leaders, all whispered his name in fear. El Mencho became a brand, a legend, a ghost that haunted the hills and cities alike. By the mid-2010s, the CJNG had cemented itself as one of the world's most dangerous criminal organizations. And at the center of it all, El Mencho remained untouchable, elusive, strategic, and terrifyingly intelligent. El Mencho was more than a name. It was a legend whispered in fear. From the dusty hills of Aguililla to the streets of Guadalajara, his reputation grew faster than his empire. What made him dangerous wasn't just his violence.
It was his mind. He built his empire from nothing, unlike other cartel leaders who inherited power. Every decision was deliberate, every move calculated. He rarely appeared in public, yet his influence was everywhere. Villages under his control obeyed his unspoken rules. Police officers feared retaliation. Rivals hesitated to challenge him. Even whispers of defiance carried deadly consequences. Despite his shadowed life, authorities traced him globally. The United States and Mexican governments offered millions for information leading to his capture, at one point as much as 15 million USD.
Yet El Mencho remained untouchable. Hidden in rugged hideouts, shielded by loyalty and fear, he became a ghost, always present, always watching, but never caught. The myth was simple. No one knew where he slept, what he ate, or where he traveled, and that was the point. His power wasn't just physical, it was psychological. Every rumor, every story, every news headline reinforced the legend. For years, law enforcement pursued a phantom. For communities across Mexico, he was both a nightmare and a force that reshaped their lives. The boy from Michoacán had become a kingpin, elusive, ruthless, unstoppable. For decades, El Mencho had been untouchable. Ghosts of the past, law enforcement, and rival cartels all hunted him, yet he always stayed one step ahead. But no empire lasts forever. On February 22, 2026, in the rugged hills of Tapalpa, Jalisco, the long hunt finally caught up to him. Federal forces had tracked him through intelligence, surveillance, and relentless pursuit.
The confrontation was brutal. Gunfire erupted in the hills as cartel members fought desperately to protect their leader. Amid the chaos, El Mencho was wounded. The man who had evaded capture for decades was finally cornered. As he was being transported for medical attention, El Mencho succumbed to his injuries. The boy from Aguililla, the ghost of Mexico's criminal underworld, was gone. Yet his death did not bring peace. Chaos erupted almost immediately. Cartel affiliates set fire to vehicles, blocked roads, and lashed out against authorities. Cities and towns trembled as the CJNG tried to assert that their power was far from broken. The fall of El Mencho revealed the true scale of his empire. It was not just one man's story, it was a network embedded deep within communities, finances, and territories. Removing him did not erase the cartel. It left a vacuum that could ignite even greater violence. The hunt for a successor began instantly. Trusted lieutenants and family members were rumored to be poised to claim control, but the stability of the CJNG remained uncertain. Rival factions and enemies watched closely, waiting for cracks to appear. El Mencho's death marked the end of an era, but his legacy of fear, power, and control would echo across Mexico for years to come. El Mencho is gone, but his shadow lingers. The CJNG remains, fractured yet resilient, a reminder that one man can shape the destiny of thousands. His death created a power vacuum, and with it, uncertainty. Analysts and authorities predicted internal battles as lieutenants and family members jockeyed for control. Rival cartels waited, ready to exploit any weakness. The war that El Mencho started did not end with him, it only shifted. Yet his story is more than violence. It is a mirror of Mexico itself, a country where poverty, corruption, and demand for narcotics create the conditions for power to rise from the most unlikely places. El Mencho's life is a warning. When opportunity meets ruthlessness, legends are born. Globally, governments continue to pursue the CJNG. Sanctions, arrests, and intelligence operations seek to dismantle the network, but the flow of narcotics and the lure of wealth persist. The infrastructure he built, Hidden labs, financial networks, and loyal followers ensures the empire's influence endures. For the villages of Aguililla and towns across Jalisco, life carries on, but fear and respect remain intertwined. Children grow up hearing whispers of the man who became a ghost, a king, and a myth all at once. El Mencho's story is a reminder. Empires can rise from the shadows of the ordinary, and even the most untouchable can fall. But the forces that create such power, inequality, opportunity, and human ambition are not so easily erased. The boy from the hills of Michoacán became one of the most feared men in the world. His empire will be studied, feared, and remembered for generations. And in the echo of his legend, Mexico and the world continue to grapple with the legacy he left behind.